10 more laps. 10 more laps. 10 more laps. 10 more laps to go. My 66 model has been raring to go. I worked a lot of hours getting her ready to go, fixing up the engine so she won't blow. I'll be a winner, I know. 10 more laps. 10 more laps. 10 more laps. 10 more laps to go. I was running way ahead of all the other cars. I was doing fine and everything was good so far. Track was getting hotter with the melting of the tar. 10 more laps to go. 10 more laps. 10 more laps. 10 more laps.
Hello there. Welcome to Paul's Place. Another day in the studio. Another fastest 1 hour that you'll ever experience with anything to do with racing. There's sometimes I think this program runs faster than any of the race cars I ever tried to qualify. I have been known in my younger years that I was closer to faster women and slow horses than anything I wanted to remember. But anyway, this show takes off and runs for 60 minutes with no commercials, and it's the fastest thing that you can be associated with tonight. I've got 4 guests here today, and we're going to be talking about a get-together November the 14th at Post 241 in Waynedale. It'll be the second get-together that Ed Fisher's put on, but I'm going to leave him talk about that. I'm not going to steal his thunder from that. So I'll introduce the 4 guys here, and then we'll get started on I don't know, until we run out of lies, I guess. That's it. If Popeye Page was here, he'd say that, but he's not here, so we'll get started without him. Over on my far left is a guy from up north here, the town of Huntertown. He doesn't do much hunting anymore, but he reminisces and he can talk about racing because he was involved in it, none other than Jack Walkett. And we'll get to you in a minute, Jack.
Okay.
Right next to me is Ed Fisher. Ed's the one that's involved in putting on this get-together that we're going to have in November. And we'll leave Ed get talking a little bit. Over to my right-hand side is the guy we haven't seen in quite a while. He winters down in Florida, and he don't come back till it gets about 80 up here. Didn't get that hot this summer, so he just got back here recently. Bob Kohlmeyer. And then the guy that needs no introduction on the other side is Rocky Fisher. Rocky has been involved in every kind of racing you can think of, and I'm sure he's going to have some things to say this morning or this evening, and it's going to be quite a get-together. What we're going to be talking about today is just a minute story of what's going to go on November the 14th at the get-together in Waynedale. So I'm going to leave Ed start off here and explain what's going on, or what will be going on.
Well, it's Saturday night, November 14th at the American Legion Post on Bluffton Road in Waynedale. We did one 2 years ago, had an excellent turnout. I'm guessing about 130 people. We're looking for a bigger turnout this time. We invite all the old racers, car owners, mechanics to come out. There's no fee to get in. We have sponsors that pay for the appetizers, be a cash bar. We have music later and just a lot of reminiscing. And I'd like to ask anybody that has memorabilia, DVDs, VCR tapes, to bring them along. We'd like to show them. We'd like to see their memorabilia and their pictures. So if you're involved in racing in the last 60 years, come on out. We'd love to see you that evening.
Are there anybody 60 years old that's still around racing?
I'm not yet. I may be the only one sitting here that isn't.
Well, I don't know. Jack might be. Rocky, I don't know. I don't think Rocky's that old. He hasn't been around. Kohlmeyer, I know, is not that old. I think he just got out of high school about 3 years ago.
We did have a gal at the one 2 years ago that raced at Fort Wayne Speedway in the early 50s. Her name escapes me right now, but
I remember she was out there.
I remember talking to her.
Yeah. We were awful glad to have her there.
That was the old powder puff. I finally remembered the flagman that was out there. It was Ed Bright. Ed Bright was the flagman. He's the one that when Wheezy went through the pagoda, he left the tire prints on Ed's shoulder where Ed just barely got out of the way. Fat Klein was another one was involved in that. So, Jack, you started racing back in the 50s. I'm going to say 40s, but
Yeah, a
little early.
My stepdad was in it back in the
Yeah.
40s, and Leroy Beamer drove for him.
Yeah.
Leroy Beamer.
Leroy was a long drink of water.
Yep.
Yeah,
Arms was about 6 foot long.
right. And then Leroy, I think, drove for Pappy Zen a little bit too at that time. He drove my stepdad's car.
Didn't Leroy get into midgets for a little bit?
Yeah, I think he was into a little bit of everything.
And he was
at the time, yeah.
Leroy, what, about 6'4", 6'5"?
Oh, he was a big guy.
He was tall. I remember seeing him in a midget out at South Anthony.
Yeah,
And remember when they used to run, and no, not degrading Leroy or anything, but they used to put monkeys in these cars at the fair and they run them around all the way up the top and all that. That's what Leroy used to remind me of because he sat so much higher than the windshield. There were no roll cages back then.
No, back then you just ran.
Yeah.
Ran what you bring, or whatever, however they say that.
Run what you brung.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was. That was quite a deal. In fact, the first car I ran at South Anthony, I flipped it and didn't have a roll bar in it. You know, the whole top come down.
Yeah. Remember the old coupes back then didn't have steel roof on them anyway. They had
it had a cloth roof.
cloth roof in them. And they had little wood 2x1s or something like that, and hold the spring that held the headliner up. Of course, you ripped all that out. So a guy by the name of Raymond Wright, you probably know him.
Ray Wright from South Bend.
From South Bend. He used to run a Terraplane
Yeah.
sedan, and he had the whole top open, and that's how he climbed in and out of the car. It was right through that roof.
Yeah, there was a lot of guys from South Bend came down there, from Dick Good and all.
Yeah.
I remember Dick Good winning a feature out there at South Anthony one time on his top.
Yeah.
They gave him the flag on his top.
Yeah.
He
Dick,
flipped her coming out of Ford.
he was the first one to run Chevy V8s in one of them rail jobs.
Yeah.
I remember one night that he picked up a rock, broke a spark plug off, and it pinched the engine real quick like.
Yeah. Cease Wells was another one. He put the V8 in the roll cage. He built a lot of those cars and
Cease, as I remember him, he could set the track record. He'd go out there and set the track record, but you put him in the feature, and especially if you inverted the top 10, Cease was gone. He could not drive traffic.
he lived beside me up the lake,
Yeah.
and he took that fuel-injected V8 and dropped it in an old wooden Chris Craft. And I don't know what ever happened to him because he took it out of the water. It was too much for that Chris Craft, you know.
And I think everybody's got a boat story to tell. I got that one with Bob Frash. You guys are pretty quiet over here. Were you involved in racing back then?
No, I just used to take my boat out and go fishing. Yeah, I started in '53, so I've been running quite a few years.
Yeah.
I didn't start till '66 was my first year. I obviously went to the old Speedway and watched everybody race out Fort Wayne Speedway and South Anthony, and just so happened my parents wouldn't allow me to get in a car until I turned 21. So the day I turned 21, I started building a car, and away we went.
Well, it's
Which brings me to a question I like to ask people. Each of you, what was your first race car, and did you buy it or build it?
My first car was a '37 Ford four-door, and I built it in my dad's driveway with a little 110 welder. If you got too close, it stuck and blew the fuses out. You had to keep changing it. That's really where I learned how to weld was, you had to be really close and steady. Anyway, that was my first car, and I drove it at Motor City Speedway in Detroit and at Pontiac, Michigan, M59 Speedway, and used to run with a guy that a lot of people know, Joy Fair.
Yeah.
yeah.
He was a kingpin back there. He had an orange 02, a 34 Ford Coupe, and he was the guy to beat there. Obviously, I didn't beat him, but later on, you know, I only ran the stock car for, I think, 2 years, and then my dad was in midgets for 15 years, and he still had a couple of them sitting around, and I talked him into getting one ready, Ford 60, and letting me drive it. So, but I was only 15 when I started. Back then, you talked about your parents. When you be 21, well, you couldn't race unless you was 21
No.
years
Yeah.
ago.
Yeah.
Now you can start racing when you're 15 or 16.
Right, my mother signed for me.
Yeah.
So she signed a waiver so I could start racing.
I started in '66. I bought a used '58 Chevrolet two-door coupe, and of course we worked on the motor, and that was back when they were running what they called street stock
Yeah.
at Bearfield, and the street stock rules were pretty liberal, and I hung around with Dave Sorg, and Repine and the boys, so they helped me out quite a bit, and I ended up track champion the first year in the street stock. And then the second year, I bought a old '60 Ford two-door sedan, and we built my first late model stock car, and we ran. I and several other guys owned that for about 3 years, and from that time forward, I drove for other people. I drove midgets, I drove modifieds, I drove late model stock cars. About anything that anybody would put me in, I'd crawl in and we'd go racing. I raced for 17 years, loved every minute of it,
Yeah.
never had any regrets.
Well, you have one. There's one regret you'll have to live with till you die is you got started too late. And what was
66.
66. The racetrack of choice, the one that all the big boys around here ran, was Clems Lake in Decatur. And if you don't have that racetrack on your
It's not on my resume.
resume, then you just ran with the rest of them. Well, Rocky's another, and he never got to run Clems
Well, but I
Lake.
fished there.
That's close.
What was your first race car, Paul?
My first race car was like Rocky. It was a 37 Ford four-door sedan that I built in the auto shop at Central High School. I took auto shop in high school there, and Hemphill was the instructor, and he always liked about racing, and it was always a deal where somebody else was always going to drive the car. But when we got it out to the big track, there wasn't nobody there but me, and, and I drove the thing until one day we signed in, and they left us get all the way in the pits and everything, and then Bill Elik and who was the other guy come down there, and I used to have that junkyard out on Pontiac Street.
Oh,
His kids are involved in racing.
well, Cliff Stillwell.
Cliff Stillwell, and they said, Paul, we can't leave you race anymore. You're not old enough.
He was a sheriff, a deputy sheriff.
And I said, well, I got a driver's license and everything shows I'm 21 years old. And they said, well, we aren't going to get into that. He says, your sister called yesterday and told us everything. So I left somebody drive my car then that day, and they literally tore it up. And so I loaded what was left of it and took it home. And next week I was out there and with Wheezy. Of course, that's why I got involved with racing. Norm went with my sister. And after a couple of weeks, they asked me where my race car was. And I said, well, if I can't drive it, it's not going to be out here because it just isn't to be. Well, they said, Dutch McKinley stepped in. He owned the racetrack. And Dutch says, Paul, you bring the car back out here and you can drive it. Just don't say anything. And he told them other guys, don't ask any more questions. So I was only 16 years old at the time. And then what's really funny is Jerry Ott got caught about a week later, and they kept him off the racetrack
Really?
for a year. Yeah. So, but anyway, that's my first experience with racing.
Yeah, my first, I had a 40 Ford. That's the one I flipped with no bars or nothing in it. I think I lasted about 5 laps the first night. So, but I was moving. And then I bought a 34 Ford. And I built it up and ran it for a long time. Motor parts and equipment built my engine. And I
Lloyd
ran it.
Yoder.
Yeah, and I ran it for quite a while, and then I started driving for other people, and I drove for Bradbury and Mason out in Waynedale, and I drove for a lot of drove for Pappy Zent for a little while, and then I drove a car. Buck Lauder used to drive it from out of Columbia City.
there was a-
At number 9, it was.
There was a lot of nice, good cars out of that
Yeah,
Columbia City and north of there.
It blew up. We had that pressure tank. Remember how we used to pressurize the gas tank, a fuel tank, and
Yeah,
blow the fuel to it?
yeah.
And that sucker blew up, and it just kept burning. You couldn't stop it because until that air got out of that tank,
Yeah,
it had no shut off on it. I got burnt pretty bad that one year, and then after that, I drove for. Let me see. I drove for 2 guys out of Metz, Indiana.
Did you ever drive for Maury DeGrasse?
No, I drove the old for Bright. I drove Bright's Hudson that one time.
Yeah, Bright had a good 6-cylinder there.
Couple times I drove
Yeah.
for him.
Maury had Walt Potter drove. He had 2 cars. He had a Chevy 6 and a Ford.
Right.
Walt drove the Ford, and one year I drove that 6-cylinder. And that was a flying 6-cylinder. We used to go to Eldora with it on Sunday afternoons. Take both cars over there, Eldora or New Bremen,
Right.
and then Sunday night we'd go to Bryan, Ohio,
Right.
and run up there. We used to run good at Eldora and haul that thing all the way up to Bryan, Ohio, and tear it up.
Did you ever run that Warsaw track?
Oh yeah,
That
Warsaw
one down
was-
at the
yeah.
lake there. Did you ever run that?
Yeah, I won the championship there.
Yeah.
Did you?
75 in the sprint cars,
That's
yeah.
quite a.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Talking about age,
yeah.
I got kind of a funny story. It wasn't funny at the time. I was scared. But I started when I was 15, so
Yeah.
I had been racing at M59 Speedway in Pontiac. There was 2 of them there. So we were racing, and it was my 18th birthday. And I wasn't even thinking about that, you know. So anyway, at some point during the program, they started announcing for me to come to the judges' stand. And they're going to ask me how old or make me prove my age. And I'm not going up there. You know, I just stayed out in the pits and wandered around. When it was time to race a heat or something, I'd go race, get out of the car and take off away from the car. And they kept announcing, you need to come here, you need to come here. I never did go there. So when the races are over, and my parents never came to the track, this time they were at the track, but here they come. What were you doing? Where were you at? We had a birthday cake for you. I want to celebrate my birthday. And I said, I wouldn't go up there and tell them how old. I'd have to say I was 21, you know, or something. So I never did go to the judges' stands. We had a party afterwards, but I was scared the whole night long that day. Found out I wasn't old enough, they're going to run me off, you know.
Yeah.
You guys mentioned Bryan Speedway, and then I'm sure everybody's got a lot. I think everybody here probably raced at Bryan at one time or another.
Buck
didn't
Stark,
they?
I never heard of him.
Oh, Buck, he was quite a guy, wasn't he? Things were pretty loose over there. Went up one night and asked him, well, what size tire could we run on the right front here? He says, I don't know, go ask Stan Perry. He ought to know. This is a pit steward. And that's just the way things were over there. Stan says, put it on no matter what it is. Nobody cares.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Remember old Tiny that was in
The flagman?
Yeah.
and he used to bet people he couldn't pick him up.
Yeah.
He'd make you a bet. You can't pick me up, and you couldn't pick him up. I don't know what he weighed, but
He weighed about 200 pounds, really.
oh, he weighed more than that.
Oh,
Oh, I'm sure he was
each
bigger.
side.
Yeah, well, I don't know. He was a lot of blubber, really.
Yeah.
If you ever looked at him, it hung on him.
Oh, yeah.
And I tried picking him up one night.
Did you?
Yeah, and
His name wasn't Purcell, was it?
Tiny
Purcell?
Dukin or Deacon or
I
something.
didn't know. I never knew his last. That's just like Charlie. I never knew Charlie the midget. I never
Charlie
knew
Reed,
his.
huh?
Yeah.
He
One night
was-
we was out at the high bank, and old Charlie said, "I can stand on your roof all the way around
Oh,
that
jeez.
track on my head." And I said, "You can't do that." And he said, "Yeah," but he said, "No, I don't want you going. I don't want you to throw me off." He said, "Just run easy, you know." And that son of a gun got up and stood on his head. Now we went clear around that big track out there.
geez, that's a rough track.
Oh, he was.
There's a lot of good stories about Charlie. They say him and, of course, Jess Yates were good
Oh
friends.
yeah.
They were like peas in a pod.
Charlie comes up to about Jess's knee, and they said, Charlie, go in somewhere and start a fight, and
Yeah.
he'd hide under the table and let Jess finish it.
Charlie, one night I run into him. My brother was playing music over there in Auburn, and him and Jess There was a bunch of us sitting at the table, and Charlie said, "Get your brother to let me come up on the stage." He said, "I can stand on my head and drink a beer while I'm standing on my head." And I said, "You ain't no way you can do that." And he said, "Take all the bets you can get." He said, "I can do it." And that son of a gun did that. He went up there on that stage and stood on his head, put that beer bottle in his mouth, and he sucked her right down. I don't know how he did it.
He could do strange things. Of course, I don't know, how did Bice ever run into him?
Just from being in that area there,
Well, I
off the
think-
Kendallville, Auburn area.
Yeah, I think that he used to hang out. Bice used to have that transmission shop there in Auburn.
Yeah.
And he hung out in there a lot. I think.
Because I never was at the racetrack that he wasn't standing next to the flagman stand
Yeah.
or within 50 feet of the bleachers or something. At first I thought whenever Bice took the equipment out of South Anthony, he was a dwarf in that bunch and he moved it right with him. Because
Yeah, he was quite a
He and Charlie and Ralph Banks and Ralph the Hobo used to do a lot of things together to
Yeah.
entertain the crowd.
Ralph was quite a character also.
Oh,
he
yeah,
was.
he was.
His
He-
wife's still alive.
Yeah. I
Talked
talked to his son, Mark, occasionally.
Yeah. Ralph was, I don't know, I've had some good times with him too. He used to hang out
Yeah.
over at, in the wintertime, him and the other flagman, Myron Young.
Oh, yeah.
They were brother-in-laws.
Oh, they were. I didn't know
I didn't
that.
know that.
Yeah.
They used to hang out at that bar, Country Inn or Country something over there across from Harvester,
Okay.
right next
Coach
to the
room, perhaps.
coach room.
Coach
yeah,
room,
yeah.
yeah.
That's the coach room, yeah.
Yeah.
Ed, what year did you start racing? I remember when you did, but I can't remember.
Ah,
what year.
Ike 73, only raced a few years, was pretty lackluster.
Yeah.
My big claim to fame was I rolled over one night.
Well, some people never got to
Yeah.
experience that.
Then I got married and had a baby, and my racing career wasn't such that anybody invited me to drive their cars, so
I had
I
that
started
problem
getting
too.
greasy on them.
Rocky, you've been quiet. Your racing covers a multitude of sins, I guess. Not only racing, you've promoted too, haven't you?
Yep, did quite a bit. Talking about the big track, I was still living in Detroit at the time, and Dutch McKinley called me. I was doing midget races at fair dates, and he called me, and they had the Fort Wayne Free Fair at the big track. Wanted to know if I could bring a midget race in, and I had, if I remember right, I had Friday, Saturday, and Sunday already booked the weekend he wanted me to run. He said, well, come in on Thursday and run a Thursday night show. And, you know, you guys talk about, or I've heard a lot of people talk about them having a big track, and then they had a half-mile dirt for the horses and the little midget track in the infield, asphalt track. Well, he called me and he said, you know, to run that paved track. And I said, what we're running right now, all these fair dates are dirt tracks. And I said, everybody's got dirt tires and set up. I said, I really don't have very many pavement cars. And he said, well, then run the dirt track. I don't care. And that's what we did. We came in and run a half-mile dirt. Nobody remembers that, but I got some clippings where they did the write-up that we were bringing them in to run a half-mile dirt. Bob Reamsnyder
Yeah.
from Indianapolis won it. And, but he said, I don't know, we struck up on some kind of deal. I don't know what the money was, but it was a free fair. And when you do the fairs, you usually get 50% of the gate, the front gate,
Right.
when they pay to get in,
Yeah.
and 50% of the grandstand. The gate, you get 50% all day. And the grandstand, just what they pay to get in the grandstand. He said, well, there's no front gate, it's free. I said, what are you charging a grandstand? And that was 57. And I think he told me something like $2.50 or $2.50 or something like that. I don't remember. But I said, well, we've got to have, I think I said at least $500 purse, you know. And he said, well, that'd be no problem. He said, we'll really advertise it good. We get big crowds. I don't think there was 10 people there. But he paid me the $500.
Yeah.
A lot of people have said that they didn't get paid, but he gave us $500 and
Dutch always
So.
was his word. Dutch and I were good friends ever since I started going out there. He had a horse by the name of Jamie that had the world record of trotters and pacers at the time. And I used to take apples out there and feed the horse and pet it and stuff like that. got to know Dutch
Yeah.
real well,
Yeah.
right up to when he sold the track.
Well,
And
I drove for Dutch's brother,
Yeah.
Harry.
Yeah.
And,
Who was it that went
yeah.
out of the ballpark on 1 and 2 and landed out on the highway?
Mickey Potter.
Was it Nicky Potter?
Well, I know a guy, Ed Brandelius was his name, that drove big cars back then, sprint cars,
Yeah.
from Lansing, Michigan, and he became a midget promoter in Michigan. But he went between 1 and 2, and hit a tree. There used to be a tree out there before they took it down. He hit a tree and tore this leg all up and ended up on a highway, and he never did. That's when he became a promoter after that.
Yeah.
He couldn't hardly walk after that.
Well, there was somebody else. that-
Burchett went over
Cliff
it.
went over.
Cliff
Well,
went
Cliff,
over it.
didn't he drive away after he went out of the ballpark or rolled away? And then
I flipped the same night Cliff did, right there. And I flipped coming out of 2, and they ran me to the hospital. And when I was trying to figure a way back, here come the ambulance again. They brought in Bob Cole. He flipped the same spot. And then Cole and I was standing there trying to figure out how to get back, and here they brought Cliff in. That was
and there
the same
somebody,
night.
There was somebody else that went out of the ballpark in 3 and 4 and landed in the fork of
Oh,
a tree.
yeah,
That was me.
That was you?
Yeah, I had to cut 2 trees down to get my car out of there. Yeah, that
I-
was down. That was
I
down
was a
in.
youngster then.
That was
going to
down
the
in
races,
3,
so
just
I
going
couldn't
into
remember
4.
all the names.
As you went into 3 and 4, there was a chuck hole right there in the middle of the racetrack. It was smooth on the bottom and smooth on top. So if you weren't in too much traffic, you could go high or low. It didn't make any difference. I was in traffic and I hit that chuck hole and bang, next thing I'm up, there's no guardrail there. And right out into the trees, and that old 37 Ford sitting out there. It used to be you strapped the doors shut, you didn't open. I had the doors open and the car was sitting about that far off the ground. Had good, and they didn't have chainsaws. You went in there, in fact, the only saw that they had there was one of them buck saws that, you know. it
Two
had-
people bucks on.
Yeah, and you had to be real careful. Once the tree got about 2/3 of cut, it would creak and then the car would get closer to the ground. Then winched it back up over the top because you couldn't go any further down. That was all full of trees.
There was also, they had an ARCA show, I want to say back in like 58 or 59 maybe, where somebody went through the sign on the backstretch.
That wasn't,
Keller.
that was,
Bobby
yeah,
Keller.
that wasn't the ARCA show, was it? That was,
No.
That was,
What-
that
it
was,
was a
he was
late
in
model-
a,
late
he was in
model.
a coupe when
Yeah.
he went through.
Well, no, this one I'm thinking about was an ARCA show.
It might have been the same deal, but Mark.
That might
Yeah,
be,
yeah,
might be.
Markham's,
It
yeah.
was a new car
MARC,
show.
Yeah.
And
I
and
ran
they-
one new car show out
Yeah,
there.
they went through the sign, remember that? The sign, maybe the second or third sign down the backstretch there, went right through that sign. I think he might have got hurt pretty bad. I can't remember what the deal was.
Keller got that 2x4 in his head.
Yeah,
with
that
his helmet.
splinter went in.
And, yeah, but tell you about the big track, you guys all ran it, that did it. The big track was the strangest track you ever drove. It was, even though it was built a lot like Winchester and Germantown, they were Dayton, there,
Salem.
and Salem was a lot smoother than any of the rest of them. But the big track, you went down the main straightaway. Let's say they throw the green flag and you come out of 4. Mickey Potter and all them guys always like to be up on the top coming out of 4 and hit that main straightaway and then hit the middle of 1 and then float right into 2. When you got into 2, you want to cut down and as far as you could get. So when you were on the back straightaway, that thing was rippled. And if you were down at the bottom, it would bounce you up in the middle of the racetrack and you keep on going. But if you come out of that track high, you come out of 2 high and you hit them ripples, right into that guardrail you went, right into them signboards.
And the other thing on that big track, when you went into it, when you hit the middle of the turn, it was
Yeah.
like it dropped down and just started right straight out. It
Yeah.
wasn't a nice, smooth
Transition,
It would
yeah.
just shove you right down, right in the middle of that
And
track.
all you could see is asphalt and sky.
Yeah.
That's all you could see.
Well,
And then as you-
I was lucky because I really I'd only run 1 or 2 sprint cars, and this had to be in 57, 58 maybe. And Tom Cherry used to run a sprint car series,
Yeah,
and they were at Fort Wayne, but I was running at Eldora in the modified. And when that race was over, there was a guy who lived in, I can't think of his name right now, lived up by by Milford, and he said, you going over to Fort Wayne? And I was still in Detroit. And I said, for what? And he said, well, they're racing over there now. You got a car to drive. I said, never been there. He said, well, follow me. And we took off. We drove 100 mile an hour or whatever to get over here. And they had already started racing by the time we got here. And I come walking across the track. Well, I used to run around with Johnny White a lot. And I come across, and he said, where's your uniform and helmet and stuff? I said, out in the car. He said, go get it. I said, what for? You guys all heard of Ronnie Duman. He said, Duman won't run this track. He said he went out and hot lapped, and he said he ran a heat race, and he said, you know, the car is all over the racetrack. The track's so rough your teeth won't stay in, and he just parked the car, you know. He said, if you want to run it, I'll get you riding it. You'll have to run the B main to get in the feature, you know. So I run out and got myself. By the time I got back, it was ready to go, you know, and they had the car on the track. I jumped in it. And he said, you know what to do. You got to stick her right on the fence. So that's where I went. And I had to start back because they changed drivers.
Yeah.
And I don't know how many was even in the race, but I went right on the guardrail and just run that son of a gun on the guardrail, won the race, and got in the feature. But by the time I got in the feature, my arms and shoulders and back hurt so bad, I didn't go no place. We were just bouncing around. It was terrible. But we stayed on the racetrack, and we were right up against the fence. You know, they had a fence by that time.
Yeah, they had a
He-
guardrail around it.
He
too.
liked that outside of that fence out of the Eldora one time.
Yeah.
He
That's
went
the
too
only
far
place
on
to
the
run.
outside of that fence.
No, I run over a guy's wheel going into one.
Yeah, I remember
Do
that.
they
Yeah,
charge
he flew
admission to
around.
get back in?
I figured they'd charge him, but they carried him back in.
No, they carried me out, yeah. Yeah.
I always was told if you went out of the ballpark, you had to pay to get back in.
Well, I paid all winter, healing up all
Healing
winter.
up. I'll tell you another that took a bad flip down there was, just on the tip of my tongue. He ended up in the horse barn down there.
Oh,
Not Wendy Cole, but
I know who
Fort
you
Wayne
mean.
Speedway?
yeah.
I know who you mean.
Cowboy Lights?
No, God, no.
Whippy Row.
No,
No, I don't know.
no.
I can't think that guy. I know who he's
He
talking
lived
about.
over there. He used to hang out there at that tavern over there by the stockyard off of Maumee.
Where the old halls used to be there?
Yeah.
Hall Stockyard, yeah.
Yeah.
Not the 19th hole.
No.
No, it was,
Yeah, but there was a 19th hole, I don't know what it was called.
His
before
brother
that.
was a mechanic,
Yeah.
and Paul, and they lived right there right by Martin's yard.
I-
Mickey Potter lived right in there, so did Ray Walters. That's where I ever met him. You mentioned that Warsaw track. Ray Walters was the biggest showman I ever met back in them days. I always said that the two biggest con artists that I ever met in my life was Mike Gladio and Bill Budd.
Two of them. That's right.
They were the two that we'd sit all winter long in racing meetings, make up all the rules.
And then
when
they'd break them.
when they put their car on the racetrack for the first race, there wasn't that rule book, and that car didn't come close to anything. But Ray Walters fit right in with that crowd, and Ray was up. Mickey Potter didn't make it for some reason. Back then, you could miss a race and something else, and it was okay. But Mickey didn't make it to Warsaw, so Ray Walters got into that. Now, Ray Walters had a Granker engine in that car. That was one of the early Granatelli flatheads out of Chicago. And he got it out on the racetrack, qualified it without getting into any trouble, and he got in the heat race. And about the third lap of that heat race, or somewhere in the middle of that heat race, he's coming down the back straightaway, and I don't know whether he forgot to let off the gas or what, but he got that car upside down. I remember the battery flying into the pits. The cables were still hanging on it. He just rolled that all over. And the minute he got out, I don't know if you could smell him or anything, but first thing he did is reach for his wallet and grabs one of them $50 bills he always carried. $50 bill says, somebody hit me. $50 bill says, somebody hit me. And nobody hit him. He did it all by himself.
I went down to Winchester last weekend for the 400.
Yeah.
Them old boys qualified a stock car down there, 1493. And the sprint cars are out running in the 14s, I know, but he went 14. It gave somebody out of up by Bill Elliott and the boys in Georgia, North Georgia, went 1493, which is what 120 some mile an hour average speed on a half-mile racetrack.
Yeah,
just truly
It gives
amazing.
you an idea of how much faster, or the times have changed and how much better the cars and the tires have got.
That's,
Yeah.
that's the whole
In
thing.
'75, I had two different cars that I ran, USAC sprint cars, two different car owners. And we had 3 races at Winchester. And if I remember right, my fastest time was like a 17:45,
Yeah.
and that was like 10th fastest.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there were just, if there were anything, they were in the high 16s or low 17s.
Well, when I qualified for the, let me see, it would have been 1972 Winchester 400, I qualified a stock car then, and I was 21st fastest qualifier out of 90-some cars, and I was like 1803 or something like that.
Yeah, 'cause
Um,
I can remember running the flatheads down there, and we qualified in the 20s,
Yeah.
low 20s, 20, 21. If anybody got down in the 19, you-
Oh, he was motoring.
he was motoring, he was
Yeah.
really,
See, Eldora is the same way.
Yeah,
Uh,
outdoors.
When we ran there every week, you know, and won championships and features, we were in the 18s, high 17s and 18s. And now I think the track record, Swindell, if he's still got it, is like 1390 something.
Yeah.
Yeah, what did they run
They just-
for Tony's show of the Prelude to
They
the
just,
Dream?
they ran it. I just seen it on TV.
What was it, 14,
14s
Something
were
like
big.
that.
1490 something
Yeah.
or something
Yeah,
like
they
that?
said they were running.
They're flat footing it.
Yeah.
They're flat footing it around that racetrack
Yeah.
in a semi stock looking stock car.
well,
Yeah.
they got a stock body on
well,
that
so-
rail.
well, yeah, somewhat of a stock body, or almost looks like a car.
They have a decal from a
Yeah, they have a
manufacturer on
decal
it.
on the front that
Says
makes it look
Chevy.
like kind of
Yeah.
a car.
Yeah.
But they're using, God, that's unreal.
Yeah, Jack said it earlier, the car burned up down there. We had an old timers get together out at Cutter Chalet years ago. Smokey Montgomery put this thing on. And Bill Lipke wanted me to do the talking on how dangerous it was. And I said, well, you sit down in your race car, and instead of having a racing seat or anything, we never had them. What I had in my car, which was popular with a lot of guys, we take a 35-gallon drum and cut it out, and then put garden hose, split a garden hose and put it down on the rough edges. And then you had a lap strap, an old World
Right.
War II lap strap. It was chained to the frame. No shoulder harnesses or anything like that. Right behind this seat, this barrel seat you had a 5-gallon Army surplus jerry can that you had a half-inch nozzle brazed in the bottom of it, and then the copper tubing come out, went right past you, right up to the firewall, and on the other side of the firewall you had a Stuart Warner electric fuel pump
Yep.
that was hooked up to that, and then that's hooked up to your carburetor. Right on the other side of that copper line was a battery sitting right there, bolted down to the floor.
With
And
no
then-
cover.
With no cover, no,
Oh,
just sitting there. Then over by inside the right front door was another one of them 5-gallon jerry cans that had 2 nozzles, 3/4 nozzles, one on the bottom and one on the top, and then the heater hose ran outside. That gave you 5 gallons extra water. And then on the old flatheads, we used to cut every other vein off the water pump so it wouldn't pump the water
Put
out.
washers in the
So
hose.
gone to a-
Put the washers in the
Yeah,
hose.
put the washers in the hoses too. And this is what you got, and they say, line up, boys, we're going racing. Out of 20 cars sitting out there on the track to go racing like that, 15 of them was built that way.
Yep.
And when Bill Bischoff went off, we used to run Thursday nights out there also besides on weekends. He went out on a Thursday night, and when he went off the back end of that thing, the gas came out of the jerry can and spilt all over him. Now, he's lucky that there wasn't no flames or anything,
Yeah.
he'd burned alive. But when they got him to the hospital and got him cleaned up and everything, his skin from around his ears and that
All red.
was all red and rash, and he'd lost a tooth and a few other things. He was in the hospital for about a week. I know I used to go up there every day because he was driving for Ted Barr.
Yeah.
Ted and I used to keep our cars in the same garage over there on Calhoun Street by Coral Dodge. And Bill never raced after that. His brother took over for Ted, and I don't know who else. But that is how you raced back
Oh,
in them
right.
days.
Yeah,
and
that car I got burned in, they had some kind of an air airplane pump that pumped air into the tank.
Yeah.
And it had a pop-off valve that's supposed to keep it at 9 pounds.
Yeah,
Well, it was the first night I ran for him, see, and I
That's
was
right.
leading the
Yeah.
feature, or
The
leading
hand
the,
job.
not the feature, the heat race.
yeah.
And I thought, well, I've only got a lap or two to go, you know. So I just kept up, and well, by then it blew the hoses off. And went.
Well, what you're
So
talking
they had
about,
just
yeah,
little
that-
clamp on them.
that pressure running the midgets, used
Yeah,
to run
that's
the
the
midgets.
midgets.
Rock and I were
And
just
the
talking
early
about
midgets
midgets. We
Yeah,
used
you
to,
had a
We used
pump
to
on
pump
the
them
outside, you
babies
pumped
out.
it
You left
in
it.
there, and then the outside brake, your hand
Yeah.
either was on that pump
Yeah.
or the brake. You drove with one hand. That was the old midgets.
Yeah.
And here
that was
again,
the first midget I got in, that was the deal. Pump
and
that
here
baby up.
again,
Yeah,
rear wheel brakes was that's all was on a midget, wasn't they?
Yeah.
Most of them.
Yeah,
the
to
early
start
ones.
with, yeah.
Start with.
Yeah.
And then you had a lap strap. You
Yeah.
didn't have anything
Nothing.
else. And we
Talking-
lived through all that. A lot of people didn't, but we did.
Talk about brakes. I was over at Bryan, Ohio one night, and Hart's was over there.
P6.
Yeah. Well, they had it was, yeah, I think that was their number, P6.
Yeah, P6
But
was
they
Hart's
had
number.
modified. And they said, I'd like for you to try to set it up for us. And I said, okay. So I took it out, got the engine warm, and I crammed her down the backstretch. And they didn't tell me you had to heat up the brakes. You had those brakes up. Remember those ones that you had to
Yeah.
get them almost red before they would
Yeah,
catch?
that was disc, early disc brakes.
Boy, that son of a gun, I hit that turn, I thought, whoa, there ain't no brakes here.
I did that the very first time. Remember Hoagie?
You know,
He used to drive for Hagerfeld,
yeah,
and Hoagie had never been on the big track. And this is when I come back from service. I worked with him at 7-Up. We couldn't get a job anywhere else. And anyway, we're out on the racetrack, two of us in Wheezy's car, and the old Fords used to have a choke and a throttle on the dashboard, and they were still hooked up. We go down the back straightaway. He's running about 30 miles an hour. I said, Hoagie, this ain't getting it. I pulled that throttle out and bent it over the dash. Went into the corner wide open. He's riding the brakes. I think he burned the brakes up before we get around to the front.
No, those the brakes he's talking about, they weren't discs, they were old shoe,
yeah.
but they were hard as concrete.
And they
I
just,
mean,
you have to
you
turn
could
them
ride
red.
them the whole race and you still didn't have no brakes, you know.
Yeah. Well,
Like-
Bob drove for Spangler, and then Spangler's brother, Dean,
Dean,
Yeah.
yeah.
built that modified.
Mm-hmm.
And first time he was up to Villa, he never shut her off when he was qualifying. He went right off the end, you know. And I said,
remember that,
Dean,
yeah.
I said, you got to
Yeah.
work at it. He just pulled on the track and just floored it and went right off the we was over to Bryan, Ohio, and I was the next one in line, and he was ahead of me, qualifying, see. And he went out there, and when he come down that backstretch, I thought, you ain't gonna make it.
Yeah.
And he didn't make it. He hit that wall, and remember that flagman
Yeah, flip.
used to be up there. He took part of that off.
Oh,
I think
yeah.
you was over there that night.
Yeah, oh yeah, I was there.
I was sitting in that daggone car next in line to qualify. You know, they used to take you out of the pits there.
Yeah.
All I had to do was drive over there, but no, I unhooked everything and ran clear across the track like a fool. He was a neighbor of mine, and
Whatever happened to Dean? He got divorced. didn't he?
I got divorced, and I talked to his sister. His sister works there at CVS there on Carroll Road.
Yeah.
And I talked to her, and she said that he's up north somewhere. He owned a bar for a while, and I don't know whether he's retired now or what. But
His ex-wife lives there in Huntertown yet.
yeah,
She got remarried.
she's just down the road from me there.
I ran
Yeah, I
in-
bet she does, doesn't she?
Yeah.
Yeah, I ran into her in the waiting room at the hospital one night at Parkview.
Yeah.
She had him in there for something, and I come in there for something, but I ran into her.
You
That's-
remember about a month ago, a kid got killed out here on the River Road
Yeah,
in front of Tipman. That was his grandson.
well, it was.
Yeah.
That's too bad.
Oh, Dean's brother Bob Spangler was a character.
Yeah.
Tell me about it.
We all probably
I grew
had,
up with him.
all had some doings with him, Rocky, even when
Oh,
he
yeah.
promoting the races out at Bearfield, and I ran around with him, and
Yeah.
of course he ended up working for Bobby Allison, and then after he got away from Bobby Allison, he ended up working for NASCAR. But you talk about a character. the guy he was fun to be around. I'd never had a frown on his face, but
He
he
didn't
usually had a
care.
beer in his hand.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he
I
lived over
see-
there on T'other Road,
He was, yeah,
just
he,
off of Tonkel Road.
Yeah,
And his wife is remarried, and she's moved down south.
She called me, I want to say a couple Christmases ago, and, maybe it's probably more, I'm old, I guess maybe about 4 Christmases ago, and wished me a Merry Christmas, and she was remarried, and that was still when Bobby and Judy Allison were still separated, so maybe it's more than 4 years ago.
About 5 years ago.
5 years ago, yeah.
Didn't she marry a doctor or something?
Yeah, she told me what her married name was, and I've forgotten it. I should have wrote
Her
it down.
sister told me that she came back here and had Bob,
Yeah,
and had him moved down and buried him in the backyard of their house.
No, she had him
what I heard.
cremated, and she's got an urn that she sets on the fireplace.
Oh, that she had him cremated
Yeah,
after
had him
after they
cremated.
buried him. She had him
Yeah,
cremated. She
yeah.
dug him back up.
Oh, Spang, we
Well-
used to call him. We all called. I started
Spang.
hanging the Spang on him.
Well, the day they buried him, we never put him in the ground. Remember that blizzard?
Oh, it was a blizzard. Yeah.
Yes,
that was a
The
blizzard.
pallbearers were Bobby Allison, Donnie Allison, myself,
Bonnet, Neil
and
Bonnet.
Neil Bonnet,
Yeah.
and I don't know, a couple other all NASCAR guys except for my big biscuit butt. But
Yeah.
and we never couldn't plant him because that was the year of the blizzard.
Yeah.
What was that? 78.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
remember the funeral parlor was as far as any of us got,
Yeah.
and we're
Yeah.
lucky to get that far.
Oh yeah.
And then
Before we get off to anything
Yeah.
else, we talked about Mickey Potter a lot,
Yeah,
and I've been tracing down some of the other fellows that have passed on that run at the big track,
yeah,
and I run down Walt Potter's family,
they're up
who
in
live in
Huntertown.
Huntertown.
Yeah.
Yeah,
His wife and his boys nut, and they got all of their scrapbooks out. And Walt, the big track was his favorite track, according to his wife.
yeah,
Yes.
But I've got pictures of him running at Toledo, the old Toledo Raceway Park,
Yeah.
Ileana Speedway, several tracks around the country. And
Yeah. He drove for. It was Hefner at that time.
Yeah.
Yeah, he
Hefner
drove-
Chevrolet
that was
for
late
a while.
models.
Yeah.
Hicksville, he's got pictures from Hicksville and
Yeah.
Defiance.
him and I drove together for Maury DeGrice that 1 year, and then he stayed with him. I left, went back to drive my own car. Maury's still alive, they tell me. But Walt's kids, I talk to him every now and then.
His grandson was racing for a while.
They'll probably be at the November.
Yeah, well, when I went up there, I spent a couple days up there,
Yeah.
going through pictures and talking, and had a real nice visit with him.
Yeah,
And I told him my intentions or dream was for us to have a Hall of Fame in our portion of the racing museum up there. And I wanted to try to get people in, older people, older people,
Why are you pointing at me?
as they're getting older. Try to
me
get them
out.
in before it was too late. And then we've got several prominent guys that were sickly. I'd like to get them in there before they pass on, which leads us to Jack Reilly.
yeah. Yeah, I think we're getting up to pretty close to the end of the show, and I'd like to dedicate this time a little bit of sadness on the part of the show. I didn't want to do it at the top of the show and have it linger through it. We lost one of the better drivers that you'd ever want to be around. Let's see, this is Friday, Wednesday morning, Jack passed away. And Jack, I'd stopped out to see him a couple of weeks ago, and I knew he was in bad shape. I don't know, he'd been going downhill, and Carolyn was trying to cheer him up and everything. They had hospice there at the house and everything, and it finally had to end. And even though it's hard to envision this, Jack's in a lot better place than he was, the way he was living. Jack and I worked together, we palled around together, and at one time, him and I both drove for Howard Rex. Jack probably, the picture we got of him there Easel is the Thunderbird. He was the one that brought that out, and of all the funny cars, as I would call them, he could make that one run and keep it on the racetrack. Jack drove also a lot of different cars. He also drove for other people, and he was probably known better earlier for Roanoke Reilly when he was running stock cars and that. I know his midget shows didn't work out too good. He got them upside down once, and it didn't work. But when he teamed up with Howard Rex, and Howard had a stable full of good drivers, Chuck Courtney and the guy that drove up at Warsaw all the time, that drove the Lincoln for him. It slipped my mind
It
too.
wasn't Lauder, was it?
No, Buck Lauder never drive for Howard, but I'll think of it in a minute. But Jack and Howard teamed up, and they were just about unstoppable. They were the only ones I know could run in front of Dave Sorg and Moose Myers, and he could actually put that Thunderbird up there and keep it up there. I got the opportunity to drive the Thunderbird later on, and I tell you, it was a hard car to drive if it would ever break loose from the traction on the racetrack. It's trying to compare, I'd say, today, a nationwide car to a cup car. There are two different cars, they drive different. And that Thunderbird, when it broke loose, all you could do is hang on. It had a mind of its own of where it's gone, and Jack had the talent to keep that thing on the ground. It was a hard one to run. I don't know if do you ever have any experience with Jack?
Not with that, no. But I know that Jack, he ran the big track.
Yeah.
Yes.
He ran South Anthony, and he ran some other tracks. But
Fairfield.
well, Bearfield, he ended up winning. He was the track champion in '65, and I think he was always up in the top 3 in the points.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, so
He ran.
he was one of the better drivers from the area.
Jackson, Michigan was a track that he could really fly at.
Yeah.
He really liked that track.
He was a good guy, and he was always fun to be around. He was a joy to be around. He was a great guy.
When you was on the track with him, you didn't have to worry about him taking you out or
No.
anything like that. He knew when to punch it, when not to, and everything else. And I never knew him to ever be involved in anything where, I don't know, a lot of times I come into the pits and people were slinging jack handles and everything else. And in a short tracking it, you're going to make some people mad. But I never knew Jack to have
No.
that.
I remember when he took out a big chunk of the wall at Bearfield,
Yeah,
coming out of 4.
yeah, right there in the front
Beginning of the
straightaway.
straightaway.
Yeah. Yeah, they had to stop the races and everything to block that hole. Yeah, Jack, it's going to be hard to, I don't know, think of all the things that he did. I remember Howard Rex come over to me one day when we were working at Cavell Ford. All 3 of us worked there at one time. And Howard was a no-nonsense type of a person. Howard never told jokes. He never cracked jokes or anything. He was, I don't know, Mr. Dependable. He was a transmission man there
Yes,
at
right.
Cavell Ford. And when Jack would come to work, I was always kidding him or something, and Jack come to work and he'd come around. I was on the other side of the wall from him, and I did tune-up work, carburetor work there, and Jack was a used car mechanic. Jack had come around there to get some parts. I said, Jack, you feel okay? Just kidding, you know, and yeah, why? I said, boy, you look like death warmed over. You sure you okay? And I keep this up for about 15 minutes, and you know, pretty soon Jack would go home. He'd be sick. And Howard come over there one day, and he said, Paul, he said, don't start that today. He says, Jack needs the money. He says, don't start any of that talk, okay? And we used to, 412 Club was right down across the parking lot from there, so we'd get off work, we'd go down to 412 Club, and Jack could not only drive race cars, he could shoot pool.
Yeah.
And I don't know if anybody had ever beat him in a pool game. I lived in Waynedale, and he lived out on the Crest Road, just out the Lower Huntington Road there. And I used to take my girls. I had 4 girls at the time, just young ones, and he had 1 girl and 2 boys out there. I'd take some kites, and we'd go out there and fly kites and that at his farm. And I don't know, it was just growing up, it was, Jack was always around, and I left Cavell Ford and went to work in construction, and I tried to talk Jack into going with me, and almost had him convinced, and then finally he pulled up his toolbox and went to driving dump trucks.
Yep.
And I guess drove for an asphalt company or somebody.
Well, his son had that truck,
Yeah, his son's
trucking company.
still
yeah.
got a trucking
Then
company.
there was another one before that, but I don't remember the name.
Yeah.
American Trucking or something like
Yeah.
that.
Didn't one of his boys run NASCAR, or not NASCAR, but ARCA?
Mm-hmm.
I think
Kim Reilly, I believe
Kim,
it was.
yeah.
Kim, K-I-M,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Kim and Rodney and Tanya, the three kids, and Carolyn. It's sad that Jack's gone, but all we can do is, I don't know, one of these days we're going to go that
Yep.
way, I guess.
Well, it'll be too late by the time the show airs,
Yeah.
but he is at the Clane, what is it, Clane?
Melton.
Fall.
Yeah, on
Yeah.
Lower Huntington Road,
Yeah,
and
it's on
I think
Winchester Road.
Winchester, yeah.
Yeah.
Majority of us will all be going there tonight to
Yeah.
pay our last respects, so.
He was quite a race driver.
Yeah.
I know Larry or Gary Lindhall that writes out of the Jackson, Michigan area, announcer at many of the tracks up there. Many times in his racing columns, he mentioned Jack's name. He won a lot of races up there in Jackson.
Yep.
Yeah.
There was
They
one-
also went down south. They went to Daytona once, and when they used to be able to drag your own car down there and run. Him and Howard went down there.
I think one year him and, I think they went, and I think Salesman went.
Yeah.
That same year, there was a bunch of them went down
Yeah,
there.
Sorg I think was down there
Yeah.
too. Yeah, Bill Howard
Yeah.
and
Yeah, Jack, but one thing about them guys, it's not like today, when you needed something in the pits, you walk over, and they'd hand it to you. You know,
Yeah.
if they had it, you had it,
Yeah.
you know.
it was.
It was a pretty knit clan back then.
Yeah, everybody got along back then.
Yeah.
You know, even you bring Cliff Setzer's name up every once in a while. He drove for Mike Gladio. Cliff
Yeah.
was out of control sometimes, but if you went over to Gladio and said, "Hey, Mike, I just broke the hub, and if you got an extra one," if he had it, he'd hand it to you.
And, yeah, Bill
Yeah.
Budd, him, any of them,
Yeah.
whoever had it,
It was
yours.
racing was altogether different back then than it is today. Back then, when you run what you brung, like we said
Yeah.
earlier in the program, you run what you brung and you built what you had. And today, you buy everything that you want. You buy a chassis, you buy a steering, you buy a motor, you buy a
Oh, Meyer, what do you
suspension.
think? I think one of these episodes Paul needs to do, just get about a half a dozen guys and sit around for a whole hour and tell Dave Sorg stories.
There are a bunch of Dave Sorg stories. Of course, Dave was one of the guys with Jack, Dave Sorg, Moose Myers, Johnny Klotz, Bob
Nussbaum.
Coe. Those were all the era when I really started becoming involved in racing those. Jack was one of the kingpins of the racing around in this area at that time.
Okay. Well, we're down to the last 20 seconds. Like I say, this is the fastest 1 hour you ever experience.
Better give November 14th a shot.
If we haven't said anything you wanted to say, it's too late now. It's over with. So we appreciate I appreciate you guys taking time out of your daily work and come down
I think
here.
everybody here is retired except me.
It's not a busy schedule no more.
Yeah, well, you never know.
It was too wet to play golf this morning, so I didn't miss anything.
What's your excuse, Rocky?
I've got to get back because I dropped my wife off at the beauty parlor at 8:30.
Yeah,
And we're down to one car.
yeah.
So she'll be walking around East State someplace with an umbrella. I got to pick her up.
Well, you've heard all the stories, so that's the way it is, and that's the way it's going to be. So I appreciate, like I said earlier, everybody being here, and I really get a kick out of doing this.
10 more laps, 10 more laps.